Hello, I'm Rover, and you're about to listen to a chapter of the audio version of my book, The Moongazers, a pirate queer adventure story. This is a 30-chapter series. Are you enjoying this project, and would you like to support me? You can do that by becoming a patron or buy me a coffee through Buy Me a Coffee. Enjoy! Chapter 4. Frey. It is a moonless night. The singing of crickets accompany the transition from a fading evening sunlight to darkness. A great choir of them skips through the grass from blade to blade, filling the air with a loud buzz. Slowly, the sunlight leaves the earth and stars begin to appear. First, just the most notable stars. Then follow the planets, and finally, all the small clusters. Mother used to tell me that the stars are little holes through which gods and humans could talk to each other. But the more people there were, the more the earth grew, and the larger the distance to the gods became. So the gods could no longer hear what the people were saying anymore. That is why things took a bad turn with humankind. If you pray, and you see a falling star, that is a sign that the gods have heard your prayer. Lying on my back, I watch the starry sky, the countless tiny dots. If I were to make a wish now, I would wish to see Frey again. But the gods have left the humans a long time ago, and maybe we just don't deserve to be heard either. Ants are what we are, hardly able to think for ourselves. We don't know how to take care of what has been given to us. We are ruled by our own greed. I turn around in my sleeping bag and try to fall asleep. It takes a lot of tossing before I succeed. The dew has wet the high grass, and I make my way through the field in the slight fog. It sticks to my feet and ankles. Every once in a while, I stop and pick some plants. Mint beside the creek, mugwort on the side of a road, clover and chamomile. They all land in my bag, and I continue on my way. The birds are singing their song this early morning. It is a good moment to check my traps, to get to know the area more intimately, the trees, the ditches, to become a part of their natural rhythm. Since I've been waiting for Frey in Melzhaven, I've been doing this once a week. I find a way to escape the city, and I hunt. I set some snares in the evening and check them in the morning, hoping a rabbit or hare has run into them. Then I find an inconspicuous way back to the city and climb the outer wall. Sometimes I find another way to get out of the city. A couple of times I have managed to hide in a cart that had permission to leave. The wall was one of the first things Edelsmel had built when he rose to power. They said it would protect the city from people on the outside. But also there would be more control over who would be inside. But the wall, one of the first constructions since the power cut, is mostly a jumble of all kinds of junk. Some parts consist of bricks. Others look more like a local garbage dump, dotted with old cars and some crumbling construction material. It is not an easy climb, but with strong hands and good technique, it is possible. It keeps me fit. I see it as a challenge. A short while later, I'm on the other side of the wall. A shy sun starts to bring some color to the sky as I approach the outer district of Melzhaven through the fields. The outer districts are used for growing crops and keeping livestock. These are the only areas in the city where that's allowed, and they are under strict surveillance. Nobody gets to get in or out without the guards' knowledge. Or rather, that's what it used to be like. Since Edelsmel choked in his own blood, it's not always clear who is actually standing guard. It has become easier to move through the area, bribe guards, or trick them. Sometimes they're not even there. Hopefully, someday there will be more places in Melshaven where food can be grown. There's no perpetual famine in Melshaven, but hunger is always lurking. Working hard means escaping hunger, so people work hard, 6 long days a week. It was said hard work is needed to reconstruct the city, but it has been 10 years since the Great Change, and what exactly it is that has to be reconstructed, what the hard work has been good for, is unclear to me. Leaving the part of town where food is cultivated, there are several residential districts. Then an area with large mansions and a district with small row houses, where I can now see people, even children, walking their way to work. When I first took this route, I did so in the shadows of the rooftops. But soon I found out that the people and the guards hardly took note of me. I wasn't carrying any large suspicious bag. I look like a woman and I have light skin. I look normal. That's important in a city like Melshaven, where looking as average and normal as possible serves you more than the slightest deviation from the norm. I make sure I don't stand out. I wear something to cover my noticeable red hair, a scarf that draws the attention away from my freckles, shapeless clothes, leather trousers, a sturdy coat. When I got to the base, this was one of the first and hardest lessons. To let go of who I am, to learn to become invisible again. Normal, just like everyone else. I'm going home. That is, to the place I call home now. It's already been 2 weeks since I've stayed with these people, since I rescued Vitran from a confrontation with the Peterson militia. The militia had been threatening a family. I knew that because I had been hiding on the other side of the street, and loud voices reached me from inside the house. Things breaking, a child crying. Common sounds in a city like this. As the militia left the house, they pulled Vitran from under their cart. They accused him of stealing, which I knew wasn't the case, because I had seen him cutting every single spoke of the wooden wheel with a little saw, grinning sneakily all the while. His friends were around the corner, cheering him on in silence. They were about to trash him good when I whacked the horses on their asses. Scared, they ran off, pulling the collapsing cart behind them. The man dashed after the cart, and in the turmoil, I grabbed the boy and pulled him into an alley. I took him to the rooftop by the old fire escape and down into a yard a few houses further. As soon as he was on the ground again, he started laughing out loud, grabbing his belly with his hands. He couldn't be much older than 11, probably even younger. He had brown curly hair, brown skin, and dark eyes framed by large dark eyelashes. He was slim, as most boys of his age are. "Did you see their faces?" he giggled profusely. "When the wheel broke and the horses ran away?" I found it a rather strange sight, this laughing boy in the yard after the scene he had just caused. He could have gotten into serious trouble, but apparently death itself couldn't scare him. Small acts of resistance lead to big acts of resistance, and whoever is an enemy of the city's leaders is a friend of mine. But it was also risky to help out this little rascal. I tried to keep a low profile in this city, to stay under the radar. But the next day I saw the boy and his mother on the street, and he recognized me immediately. To my dismay, he started pointing at me and yelled excitedly at his mother. All eyes on the streets turned to us. The woman thanked me for helping her son and invited me for a meal in their home. I tried to refuse politely, but the boy, whose name apparently was Vitran, would not take no for an answer. Before I knew it, I was sitting at their table and my bag lying on one of their beds. I haven't left since then. Sarah had told the neighbors I was a distant relative, even though we looked nothing like one another. Maybe it's better this way. I don't draw as much attention living in a house. Now, I'm just another citizen. I don't have to think about hiding all the time. Sarah is a smart woman, and she can use someone to keep an eye on her son while she's at work. When I throw open the door, I find the house empty. Sarah is out at work, while Vitran must be roaming the streets working some kind of mischief. The door opens directly in a small living room with a kitchen. Heavy curtains, intended to keep the cold out, hang from the windows and doorposts. They smell of herbs and wood fire. I open them to let some light into the stuffy, dark room. The furniture is dented, but clean. A metaphor for this city, I guess. For life these days. Everything is in the need of replacement, ready for something new. But creating, bringing something into being, is not done here anymore. Everything is reused, kept clean, brushed up. People are clinging to the ideas of the past. A brandless shoe isn't worth much, but an old Nike in reasonable condition is a luxury item, even though Nike ceased to exist a long time ago. This house, too, has its memorabilia from before the Great Change. A photo of a forgotten pop idol, magazines, and a vacuum cleaner that lies behind the door, gathering dust, hoping to one day be useful again. One of Sarah's favorite objects is an old broken watch that once was trendy. Like everyone, the people in this house live in the past, a past that Vitran has never known. Inside, I take out the things I gathered from under my coat. I hang the herbs to dry above the stove. I skin the hare I caught and start to make a soup of the animal. Killing animals isn't my thing. Beautiful and wild as they are, skipping through the high grass. The further you get from the city, the more wildlife you find, but few know how to hunt. The knowledge is scarce and forgotten. The people are estranged, and I want to contribute something to this family in which everyone is skin and bones. So I do so in a way that I know how, and in return, I have a shelter. Who knows when Frey will show up again? Beautiful, tall Frey, my family, my real home. Where is she? The first few days after the assassination, everybody was after the murderer, but Frey was untraceable, a mystery. She had been seen, but her identity, her past, no one knew. Until this day, the citizens of Melshaven can only guess. Fingers pointed at Erosmel's greatest enemy, the militia of the second most powerful man in the city, Jacques Trovit. Trovit had been working on providing an alternative infrastructure to Erosmel over the past few years. They were a group to join if you needed protection, or simply in protest, hoping that a new person would bring change and could make life a little easier. For years, the Trovits had been waiting for a chance to take over Erosmel's position. When the news got out that Eros had been murdered, his men took the chance to vent their frustration on the Trovits. Apparently, the mere suspicion was enough. One evening, they hunted down some of Trovit's key figures and chopped them into pieces. It was a bloody fight that took place in the fort, and both groups were decimated. I'm not sorry, is all I have to say about it. I actually found it kind of funny. You get rid of one of them, and the next one follows without you having to do anything about it. What is less funny is that Frey has disappeared. When we left the base, we promised to stay together and to use our skills for something good, so that our training would not have been in vain. We decided to bring an end to all of the men like Torben, his friends that hired us, the rulers of the cities who did nothing but make life hard for the common folk and made them dependent on their cruelty. Men who only bring pain, blood, and oppression. The men who damaged us and the people we love. We decided that their rule over us would end. I look up at the ceiling, pretend I can look through it to the sky, and hope anxiously that Frey will show up soon. I imagine one day jumping out of my skin because she'll be standing beside me and I wouldn't have heard her approaching, as she's done so often. Behind me, I hear rapid footsteps running up the stairs of the apartment, but I know it cannot be Frey. It is Vitran. The door swings open and fresh air fills the apartment. I turn around and see him standing in the doorway, his dark hair stuck to his head, his skin dark and red. He looks up at me, scaring me. The boy looks covered in a crusty red substance. "What the hell have you been up to?" I ask him while I move towards him with large steps. I recognize the stuff covering his clothes and face, the color of life and death, blood, dried blood. I take him toward the window so that I can take a better look at him. "Are you hurt? Tell me, what happened?" Squatting, I start prodding his limbs and checking him for wounds. "Don't tell Mom," he asks quietly. Something in his voice stirs at me, as if he isn't his usual happy self, as if that voice needed to come from somewhere deep inside him. "Depends," I say sharply. I take his hand and lead him to the bathroom, where I put him on a stool. There is a large pot with water on the stove. I had intended it for something else, but now I take it to the bathroom where I empty it in the bathtub. There isn't much light in the bathroom, and it's stuffed with jerry cans and other containers to store water. The boy must have been through something. It makes me nervous, and I feel a worry rising inside me. But I know I have to stay calm and respond quietly. For him. "First, you take a bath, Vitran, and when you get out, we wash your clothes, okay?" The boy looks at me blankly and takes off his shirt. His arms are thin, and you can see he doesn't eat regularly, even though it's gotten a little better since I started living here. From my bag in the guest room, I take a piece of soap that I found in an abandoned trailer park a couple of months ago. In the bathroom, I find Vitran sitting in the water. "Can you tell me what happened?" I insist. But he doesn't respond, stares into space and plays with the water absently. I look at the child in the bathtub and I feel anger. Not at him, but at whatever has happened to him. "Give me a name," I say, maybe a little too hot-tempered. My voice roars in the small bathroom and I can see the boy flinch. This isn't helping him, so I try to recompose myself. I take a deep breath and try to count to 10. "You're in shock, Vitran. It's okay. We're going to wash all the blood off you. Then we'll put you next to the stove and you'll get a bowl of soup. We'll talk later." He nods and looks away for a second. I take 2 cloths, one for him and one for me, and carefully start to wash his face and hair. He keeps staring ahead absently, moving his cloth a little over his legs. I have seen Frey like that several times, covered in blood, especially in the early days. The first times that she came back from a mission, she looked empty, hollow. As the years passed, she came back less bloodily. She had learned how to kill without soiling herself, but that look in her eyes stayed. When Vitran is done bathing, I send him to the kitchen, wrapped in a warm blanket, and start scrubbing his clothes in the bathwater with soap. A frayed pair of jeans and a sturdy shirt patched together from an assortment of textiles, probably by his mom. By now, Vitran has started returning to himself, sitting by the stove and eating the hare soup I had been cooking. "Where have you been, Vitran? How did you get covered in blood like that?" I try again with a little bit more pep in my voice, leaning against the wall. It is quiet in the apartment. Outside, there are the city's noises. Horses, but also cartwheels on cobblestone, voices and shouts. The apartment, though, is filled with a heavy silence. The smell of soup fills the room, and the burning wood stove has brought a comfortable warmth into the place. You can tell me, Vitran, but if you don't, I can also start asking around and find out that way. He turns slightly pale and looks at me guiltily. So, his lower lip quivers and he sighs. Then he starts telling me what happened. Those Peterson guys, those jerks, I saw them go into a building. I was curious and I was at the market. I wanted to know what they were up to, so I hid in the kitchen. And they started fighting with the guy who lives there, one of the leaders of the card makers, the blonde one, you know? The one who got them into trouble with Edelsmel last year too. And then they killed a whole bunch of them. He stares into space for a moment. Yeah, everybody likes the card makers. They're nice, and they give away things, and they helped Mom. So I wanted to know what they were up to. The story comes out little by little, sometimes rapidly, sometimes interrupted by silences, but the picture emerges. The Peterson guys left, and the blonde card maker was still lying on the floor, and there were blood spilling from his belly, he says in a quiet voice. Vitran looks down at the floor. So I just went to sit next to him. I knew he was going to die. I just felt it. I understand what he means. I went to sit next to him and he seemed very far away, the boy continues. When he saw me, he looked happy, but then he started talking randomly and said something about the moon. So I just said, I guess it's nice on the moon, and then he died. Watching the young boy sitting there, wrapped in a blanket with a bowl in his hand, I pat him on the shoulder and ruffle his hair. What is there to say to someone this young, who has seen death? Not just death. He had seen how someone got killed. I don't know. So I just sit down next to him. Together, we eat our soup in silence.
When somebody dies, the light in their eyes that suddenly ceases to exist. A whole world once glowing, vibrant and breathing, blacked out like a solar eclipse. Lights go past as you're lost in the mist, as you lie in your last resting place. The road, it shakes, it never stops. No one even notices your grave. On display, discounts on